გამარჯობა, მოგესალმებით. მადლობა მოგზანებისთვის. მოგესალმებით ჩვენი უნივერსიტეტის ბიბლიოთეკამ თავისი მომხმარებლისთვის, მკითხველისთვის და არა მარტო უზრუნველყოფს სხვადასხვა სამეცნიერო ბაზებზე ცდომას. და გარდა ამისა, ჩვენთვის ძალიან მნიშვნელოვანია უზრუნველყოთ ამ ბაზების სწორი და ეფექტური გამოყენება და ასევე ის გარემოება, რომ ჩვენი ახალგაზრდა მკვლევარები ეფექტურად მოხვდნენ ამ საერთაშორისო ბაზებში. დღევანდელი სამუშაო შეხვედრა ეხება სწორედ ასეთ საკითხს. ჩვენ გვინდა რომ დაგეხმაროთ იმაში, თუ როგორ შეარჩიოთ ჟურნალი, სადაც გნებავთ სტატიის გამოქვეყნება და გქონდეთ სრულყოფილი ინფორმაცია იმისთვის, თუ როგორ მოვამზადოთ ღირსეული სტატია, რომელიც შეიძლება მოხდეს სამეცნიერო ბაზაში. დღევანდელ workshop-ს გაუძღვა ყოფილი Thomson Reuters ახლა Clarivate Analytics-ის წარმომადგენელი ვარვარა სოსედოვა, რომელიც ჩამოვიდა სპეციალურად ამ workshop-ის ჩასატარებლად. ჩვენ იმედს ვიტოვებთ, რომ პრეზენტაცია გვექნება და დაინტერესების შემთხვევაში შეგვეძლება რომ გადმოგიგზავნოთ და სხვა კითხვების შემთხვევაშიც შეგიძლიათ რომ ჩვენ მოვმართოთ Facebook-ის მეილის საშუალებით და ვეცდებით ყველადაირად დაგეხმაროთ. შეგვიძლია დავიწყოთ პრინციპში
Well, thank you very much for introducing me. I'm glad to be here and to give a workshop on, actually it's more like a lecture yesterday, on preparing an article for publication based on what we can provide as assistance. So I represent Clarivate Analytics, which is currently the company that owns Web of Science, and I really hope that most of people here are well aware of what Web of Science is. If not, I'll give a short introduction into the database, just to explain what we can offer and how we can use all these opportunities. So currently the university is subscribed, and it has been subscribing for years actually, which is great, I think, for all the staff and students as well, because you can have access to information from all around the world. Basically, I will devote lots of time to journal, to finding the right journal. What's the point? Because, well, I think it's happening everywhere right now that science is evaluated all the time, and your performance is somehow assessed. And one of the metrics that's used, that is the number of publications in impact-factor journals or Web of Science journals, or some other journals as well. One of the tasks is to explain actually what particular journals we index and how you can find them and differentiate between them. What is the basic difference between different indexes that are included into the database. And after that, I'll show you what we usually recommend to do with the information that you find inside the database itself that can assist, like in writing articles in particular. All right, so let's get started. And as promised, that's information and journal search first of all. So here is the slide with the content of webofscience.com, let's say, the whole Web of Science platform. And here I need probably to give two more sentences. So Clarivate owns several databases concerning different things. Actually, we have a big patent database and bases connected with pharma and medicine, as well as trademarks. But today we're talking about this Web of Science part only. But webofscience.com is a platform that hosts a number of smaller databases. Web of Science Core Collection is the central one. But there are also different regional ones that you may be subscribed to, or different specialist collections. So if you work with Web of Science, you always can see what is available for you at the moment. So I'll demonstrate where it can be found. But the main part is Web of Science Core Collection and how we gathered that. Actually, we have been gathering and indexing data since the late 50s of the previous century, so pretty long, for quite a long period of time. And the idea behind creating the database was that actually it's very hard to find high quality information for a particular scientific field. And so researchers and scientists have to look through lots of data to find what they really need. And so there was an idea to analyze like the most influential papers in particular field and define journals where they are published, these articles, and make up a list, like index those journals that contain the majority of papers. So that's how Web of Science appeared and developed later on. We still have the same principle. We assess journals and index articles from them. A disclaimer, let's say Clarivate Analytics, previously a part of Thomson Reuters, has never been a publisher itself, so we don't have our own journals. So we only assess and will collect data, index data, and then give different metrics. So we're not affiliated with any publishing house. So, and altogether, at the moment, if we assume that there are about 100,000 journals, scientific journals, or as they post themselves, in the world, from all of them, we select about 20,000 journals. At the moment, it's almost 21, well, about 21, and collect data from them. So the principles for selecting the journals are quite strict, but how strict they are depends on the particular index that is included into the database. So probably I better show this picture first, and then we'll get back to the previous slide. So if we speak about journals that are indexed in Web of Science, they all are distributed between four indexes. So the first one that you can see on the screen, that is Science Citation Index Expanded, the oldest one, the first one, the most new respected one. That's the index for which we calculate impact factor of a journal. So that's like the heart of the whole collection. Social sciences goes next. Again, we calculate impact factor. We have different metrics for these journals, and together these two comprise about 12,000. Another 2,000 go to arts and humanities, and that's a separate field, a separate index, and here we can't. Well, we physically and practically face difficulties calculating any kind of metrics for these journals, so we do not count impact factor for them for objective reasons. Just these particular journals, and actually these particular fields, have very specific ways of citation, and as long as impact factor is based on citations, then very low numbers for arts and humanities don't give any practical information. I'll explain and expand on that a little bit more when we get to the formula for assessment. So these three are like flagships, and then we have the emerging sources citation index, which is officially in core collection as well, but that was created not so long ago, like 2015, and we have quite short, well, not that big archive till 2005 only for this particular index. These are journals from different fields, and since 2015 we decided to create this index just to understand better and to evaluate journals better before we add them to one of the top indexes. So when a journal submits application, it's assessed through the following criteria. Actually, the first three from this slide, we know, well, we should be sure that there is like international editorial board, international authors, international, well, scope of coverage, the content is okay, all the technical requirements are followed. But when we see that these criteria are followed, we actually add a journal to these emerging sources, and then we start observing it and monitoring it, actually, so that you realize how interesting and valuable it is for the international community. So all these journals, no matter where they come from, it can be folklore or literature, or it can be applied physics, they all get to emerging sources. And if they perform really well, then we assess the citations and move them upwards if it's necessary. And we find this really, well, necessary. So actually the whole database is, well, I won't say that it is really stable, because all the time we add some journals to different indexes, then we can expel some journals as well if they start breaking rules. So if we know that a journal was indexed in Web of Science like a year ago, there is no guarantee that it's still being indexed. So that's why if you or your colleagues or your students probably want to publish in a Web of Science journal, they better get to the database and check if it is really indexed at the moment. So that's what should be done, especially now when predatory journals are very active and there are lots of emails coming, lots of falsifications coming, saying that yes, our journal is indexed somewhere, it has an impact factor and so on, and then it turns out that no, there is no impact factor, it's not even indexed, not even in emerging sources. So that's very, very important. So as for the impact factor, the word that we use very often, just wanted to show the formula, how it is calculated for everyone to understand the meaning better and to actually understand, well, how basic and how it can help you to identify the right journal for you. So if you have a look at the formula on the screen, then you'll see that actually that's very, very easy, or very simple, I would even say, and very transparent. So you need just to know what articles were published in the previous 2 years. You need to know how many times they were cited in the current year, and so here is the result. As soon as we take into consideration quite a short period of time, so the current and the most current data that we have at the moment is impact factor for 2018, because we always wait till the whole year finishes, and only after that, when we are sure that we have all the citations to that year, only after that we publish a journal citation report in which we give new numbers. So numbers for 2019 will be available only next year, in 2020. So, and if you think about the formula that you see, you'll notice that, for example, if we think about all physics or probably medicine, then there will be a lot of citations to recent papers, because these are very quickly developing fields. But if it take some, well, social science, for example, in general, let's say some, well, management, then things that were true like 5 probably years ago, they're still true till the present moment. That's why when people write articles and quote somebody, give citations to some papers, they're very likely to be, to works that were published like in 2001, for example, maybe even in late 90s. So, and this factor actually influences the impact factor a lot. That's why for social sciences, we generally have lower impact factors than for, let's say, medicine. Yeah, because if we have just 3 citations or 5 citations to like 35 articles published, then the whole impact factor is very small. That's why actually we don't give it to arts and humanities, because in humanities you rarely cite any article at all, so it can be just some original text or probably some reports or maybe some essays, whatever, so no articles at all, and it doesn't mean that your particular article is bad or the journal that you publish your research in is bad. No. So for arts and humanities, we mainly assess the content without looking at citations that much. Okay, so if you have any questions at the moment, actually, if you happen to have questions, please ask, because it will make it more interactive. Just decided to put everything on slides today because I don't want to make it very long. Really feel like keeping you for an hour of a lecture and then probably some question time as well. Okay, so I'll continue the thought about impact factor and finish it, and after that I'll show how we usually use Web of Science resources to find journals, just to understand what we are choosing from, right? So the question that you can see is actually, if you learn that a journal has an impact factor of 2, is it really good or probably not? And that depends greatly on the field. So if we compare mathematics, industrial engineering, for example, and biochemistry, for all these different fields, it will feel different. So a mathematician would say, wow, it's good. I really want to, well, actually, I've been dreaming about it all my life, like to publish a paper in a journal with an impact factor of 2. But if we talk to a biochemist, well, they will really think over if it's a good option for them. Probably they'll try another journal with a higher impact factor. So if you, for example, happen to give some recommendations to other people and they ask you about, well, is it a good journal based on the impact factor, you should really find out what the rest are in this particular category. So that means that actually it's better to use some other metrics to compare journals. And to be sure that you know, like, if it's a top journal in a field or not. So that's why we also give quartiles to journals that we index. And that's quite an easy process. Every year, when we publish all the impact factors, well, when we calculate all the impact factors, we give we take each category. So for example, you can see neuroscience on the screen. So we take all the journals that belong to this category. At the moment that's 267, and we rank them from the highest impact factor to the lowest impact factor. So there will be quite a long list, and we divide them into 4 equal or almost equal groups, just because we cannot properly divide to 267 before. So about 66, 67 journals. So the top 66 journals will belong to the first quartile, and so on. So that's how a quartile is assigned. And you can easily say that a first quartile journal, like Q1 journal in linguistics, is not worse than a Q1 journal in, let's say, organic chemistry. So, and all these things can be found finally in Web of Science. That's just a screenshot from the database. After you did some search, I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. But when you are done with the search and you get the results, after every title, you will see, or below, I would say, yeah, under that, there is the name of the journal where it was published, and if this journal has an impact factor and a quartile, then the information is given. If it happens to be black and not clickable, then it's just from emerging sources or from arts and humanities. It can also be a paper from conference proceedings. Well, it can be a conference proceedings paper, because at the moment, Web of Science core collection includes not only journals, but proceedings and books as well. Those are in separate indexes. So yes, a publication is indexed in Web of Science core collection, and no, it doesn't belong to any like journal or whatever having an impact factor and so on. And as for conferences, and well, the difference between how we index journals and how we index conferences, that's essential. Again, because sometimes it can be a name to have a publication in Web of Science, like for a degree, for example, yeah? And if you publish it in a journal that is indexed in the Web of Science, it will be 100% there. But if you opt for a conference, for example, no one can tell you if it will appear in Web of Science or not, for a simple reason. We index conferences like year by year. So, for example, there were 23 conferences on telecommunications, for example. And all of them were very successful, and they collected materials after that and submitted an application to Web of Science. And every year we look through these materials and assess them and decide and make a decision to include or not to include it into the database. But the next conference was poorly organized, or something went wrong, and the collection of materials, all these proceedings papers, are bad quality, so we may not index it at all. So that's why if you want 100% result, opt for a journal. Okay, so when you search for information in Web of Science, okay, before I move to the next slide, yes. So I'm going to tell you about how to find a journal for publication, well, in Web of Science. And the general recommendation that I'm getting all the time if I attend academic writing conferences is practically the same. Like, you should first decide what journal you're going to publish your paper in, and only after that you transform the text that you are going to submit. So there is unlikely to be some general, let's say, articles that can be submitted to any journal. So that's why I really usually recommend to pay attention to different journals while you search for information for citing, probably in general, for using in your research, for citations, for speaking about literature and so on. So you can get familiar with the style. You can, when you work with Web of Science, you can very quickly see how many references are usually used in this particular field or in this particular journal, which is more interesting. Keywords also help, great help here, and requirements, of course, are very essential. So if we look at some particular moments, then you'll see that it really takes not that much time, but can be very effective. So I just remind you can access Web of Science from the library, or you can access it from any computer at the university, and you can register there. You can register there, and after that you just log in and from your personal computer, and that's it. So you're not supposed to be at the university all the time. Okay. So I won't concentrate a lot on different search tips. I'll just keep them in the presentation so that you could use them afterwards. So there are a few things that are really important for a topic search. because a topic search is the first thing people usually do when they start working on some topic, and it's really important to understand what has been done already. So sometimes research is very limited in that geographical sense. Let's say it's very localized. But if you need to give an account of different theories used in different countries, then definitely you need to use some international database. So that's why I put the following slide. So you should be sure that you are satisfied with the results of your search, because sometimes you can find something irrelevant. It just means that the search itself was probably a little bit incorrect. And so that's why it's better to look through the articles that you get. So you can use refine results, things, and so on. But what happens next is that you have a list of publications that might be interesting for you, and it's great to understand from which journals they come, so that you probably submit an article for this particular journal in the future, well, because you really like works from there. But definitely you should take into consideration a few things, such as should you pay for a publication or not, for example. Yeah, because if it's an open access journal, then you naturally pay for a publication. Okay, if you or somebody else finds a few moments to do some search in the field and wants to get some updates, to be aware of what's going on in the field, there is always an opportunity to create alerts and get emails to you. But that's just an option. So back to the essential things. If you start doing research in some direction, I would really recommend to look at the most cited articles in the field, and for two reasons. So first of all, what was so special about the article that made it so popular? And second, to look at the list of references to this particular article, because it's very likely that that research was based on some nice sources. And that is also possible because we index not only metadata, let's say, but reference lists as well. Okay. So you can sort things by date, by use, but that's up to you. And after in every publication, we have, in every full record, we have keywords, and that's another thing that I really strongly recommend to pay attention to. Probably we'll get to it later on a little bit in the presentation. But that's essential for different reasons. And one of them is, how to properly use terms in a particular field. Because quite often I face situations when just people do not know proper keywords in the field. Okay. Yes, as I mentioned before, actually we, at the top you can see that the number of works that cited this particular one, but below you see the cited reference list, and that is 131 in this case, quite a long list but it's a review. So it's important to know who the author quoted. And a good thing about that is that the reference list is not actually limited only to things that are indexed in Web of Science. It can contain all kinds of works. So, for example, the first one is not like blue, it's absolutely black, but it means that it's not indexed just in Web of Science, but you can search it somehow else. or just click and go to the publication. So that's, I think, a great database separately in itself, that is the cited references. Plus to that, you can, if you look through works from a particular journal, you can see how many references are used on average, and you know what to expect and actually what to do when you submit a paper. So probably they expect about 3 or 5 references, and you have just 17. See, that's what you should think about before, well, in advance. Okay. So that's just a note about full text. I think we can skip that. Okay. The option that I usually use for making up a list of journals that suit my topic is the analyze result option. That's at the top, in the top right corner. So if I have a bulk of publications connected to my topic, and I want to quickly have a look at the list of journals, I use this analyze results thing, and if I opt for source titles, yeah, so these source titles actually bring me to the list of publication or of journals which contain the majority of papers on my topic. So, and that's how we usually recommend to find those journals that might be of interest in the future. Okay. So there is an option to download the list and work with it later on. So I think it's quite easy and useful, plus to that you find publications to cite. Okay, so and when you are done with the, oops, that's well, we won't need it. When you're done with finding the journal, that's the time when you can look it up in the list, or made a separate search and look through the articles separately, or just go to the site of the web, to the website of the journal and actually analyze the text. Well, that's how the process of finding a journal by name goes. Just for you to know, again, for the presentation and for the slides. Okay. The thing that I really recommend to do when you want to be sure that a journal is indexed in Web of Science is to use the ISSN of the journal. I think that's the safest way, because names can be misspelled sometimes. Well, different things happen, but it's really hard to make a mistake in 8 digits. So there is a special field like advanced search. Slide in Russian, okay. So advanced search, and there is an option to find by ISSN. So there are many things that can be done, but that's what is necessary to know for working with journals. I showed you that particular, well, thing through Web of Science, but I also wanted to show you a similar thing that you can do, but you won't be that much sure that the journal is really what is necessary for a particular article. But anyway, there is a site that we are keeping. It's called Master Journal List, mjl.com, where we keep the list of all journals that are actual for the database. And if you want to have a quick look at all the journals in the field, it's also possible to do here. So you don't need any special registration for that. You can just search journals by different filters. And it was updated not so long ago, and the filters are quite nice. So if you are interested in an impact factor journal only, then I would say you should choose the index, as I said at the beginning. So if you need impact factor, you should opt for Science Citation Index Expanded or social sciences. Yeah, that's important to remember. So nothing else. And after that, you can probably choose some particular category and so on. So that's for you to know. And in MJL, you also have an option to find a match. It means like by the title and the abstract, you can find a recommended journal. Well, our algorithm does that. So you need to log in for that, or just create an account. All right. So let's move on. All right. I know that probably you can tell me more about guidelines on academic writing, as I've just learned. That academic writing is a basic subject for everyone at the university. But probably a few things through the prism of databases and article search that can be essential for authors. Because nowadays it's very important to make your work as visible as possible. And there are different things that can help with that. So just to remind about the structure that, well, as far as I know, and all my colleagues keep saying, so that mainly IMWrite is still used, but I know journals, editors of which say that they are very unique because we don't have any particular requirements concerning structure, so it can be practically everything. We don't want to limit our authors to some particular elements, so that will depend greatly. And let's concentrate on the first block, like before the main body, and after that, because that's what we can work with today. So for keywords, there are keywords by authors given in Web of Science, definitely algorithmically found keywords as well. So we usually say that there should be a list of about 10, 12 keywords that you evenly distribute between the title, the abstract, and the keywords themselves, just to make an article more searchable. So whatever a person types, or whatever term comes to his head, your article will be discovered. So keywords cannot be neglected and should not be neglected. And for that, you can definitely use some articles that you cite. You can have a look at the list there and just copy them. So it's not plagiarism, nothing, just helps your text. So if it happens that a journal has a limited list of keywords, then definitely you need to choose from that, but that's specific. Okay, so what I mean is, well, if I want to search about healthy lifestyle diet, then, well, the more words that can be found, the better, or the more words that come to my head that can be found, the better. And as I showed, they distribute between the headline, well, the title, the abstract, and the keywords. As for titles, well, we actually, oops, wow, sorry, that is supposed to be in English, but that's something else. That's about coding, something wrong with the coding. Okay, it doesn't matter. There were just a couple of nice examples, but that's all right. So about titles, well, we try to analyze titles all the time on the basis of what we have in the database. And truly speaking, we can't find any particular, golden rule how to do that. And what makes article, well, is there any correlation between a title and citability, let's say, of an article? But we definitely see that if an article if a title contains like the sample on which some research was done, if it contains the outcomes and, well, some variables, then it's really easy for people or for readers to understand what the whole stuff is about, and afterwards at least click and read an annotation, an abstract and so on. Because otherwise, no one wants to waste time these days, so that's essential. In color. Okay, so actually I was trying to find any correlation on let's say different punctuation marks, and it happened so that at that moment I was looking through articles about public administration, and I was surprised to learn that out of 10 most cited articles, actually in 8 articles commas, a colon was used. But it doesn't mean anything, I guess. In other fields, there was no such rule. But still, of course, columns help to structure information better. As for... oh, this one is okay. Strange. Okay, so as for the abstract, so I won't say that as a database we can, again, find any particular features that might be useful, but in general, yeah, we like when it consists of particular parts of the whole search. And again, you should never forget that it is a way to discover a publication. So when I say that it's about, well, 230, 300 words, again, it's not obligatory, because journals vary, and we come across very short abstracts from time to time, like 50 words, or very long abstracts as well. But in general, that's it. Okay. Yes, as I always say, when you find the journal, study the criteria, because only these criteria may help you make up a nice text. And what concerns my database in this case is what can be done with references. Because journals usually provide very clear guidelines about referencing, and I recommend working with reference managers to do that properly. I'm not sure how it is done here at university. Like, do you require students to use bibliographic managers or not? Yeah.
It's not mandatory, but we as a library offer in using reference management.
Mm-hmm.
Practically using Mendeley and try to promote Mendeley usage.
Okay, so.
Although the university has its own academic style, and we're trying to.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Well, that's just really perfect, because otherwise I think it's really it takes a long of time to work with the particular reference lists. So we normally use EndNote because it's it's an alternative to Mendeley. Was created a little bit earlier. But has a slightly different functionality probably at this particular stage. But if we talk about using reference managers in general, then information from one can be easily given to another, and that's, I think, very useful if, for example, you're used to working with Mendeley and you need to get quotations from Web of Science. You can add them to EndNote and then move to Mendeley. I can show you that. So, but it's the easiest way to work with citations. Okay. So some journals will put this like EndNote style, but it can be any style at all. Okay. As for main trends, I would say, Karen, you may know better, but that's what we observe and what my colleagues who constantly are working with academic English observe. So that is active voice and personalization. Hedging is a big problem for, I know, for many writers. from our point of view, they're very categoric texts. And again, last year our company had a big survey among reviewers, and like what concerns, what they're mostly concerned about, like what they like in their work, what they don't. In working with texts, and there are lots of commentaries about very categoric texts that are coming to journals. So they have to make authors less categoric. As for words, that's again what we have generated, like 12, 15. But we all know that if you use a similar number of words in all sentences, the text becomes very monotonic and you just fall asleep after the first paragraph. So definitely it should be, well, a combination of shorter and longer sentences, but no one likes long sentences. Short paragraphs, we had a nice discussion about that not so long ago, and actually, there was such a thought as probably we read so much from screens, I mean from smartphones, that there is a trend even in academic writing to make paragraphs shorter so that you don't, look through the same paragraph but on different screens. So, of course, that's partly, a joke, but partly that's true, because if it's a long paragraph and that is split into different screens, that makes life complicated. Okay, one paragraph, one statement, that's okay. But, well, yes, the last one, that's, again, what our colleagues from different from different publishing houses say. No matter what kind of journal it is, no matter what kind of field it is, everyone wants to see terms and keywords as they are. Well, the fewer abbreviations, the better, because people may be very used to some kind of abbreviation and start using it in a text. And even people, like, let's say, in medicine, well, they can have very different abbreviations, let's say in cardiology and in surgery. So that's why we strongly insist on using keywords as they are. But if you want to make a text more appealing, probably a little bit more emotional, then we always have adjectives and verbs for that. Okay. Then probably I could demonstrate a thing that I mentioned about working with bibliography. Yeah, I think it will be easier if I get to Web of Science and about working with bibliographic information. Okay, if you do some search in this database and you want to save it, I mean, to save data for later use, there is our end node that is always here. But I would say that signing in would help, because you need to have your personal library. Yeah, it's not something that exists well, in general. So I'll just sign in to my account and we'll continue. So if you have questions, meanwhile, welcome to us. Or probably to discuss something or argue about things, because it's always great to do that. I'll stay like this for some time. Okay, just a quick show, yeah, so let it be academic writing, why not? just to show how it works. When you do some search and you like a particular text or a few texts, a few articles, then you can always tick them and move to your EndNote. You can export them to EndNote online. That is available absolutely for everyone who is logged into Web of Science. That's not a problem at all, so no limitations there. You can export not more than 500 records at a time, but that's a lot already. Okay, and if you need to work, or if you want to keep it in your in this reference manager, you just add it to a particular group and that's it. When you get here, but I think it's practically similar in different managers. Okay, just will be 1, 2, 3. But if you want to move these particular things to another reference manager, work with it later on, there is the following option. So you can format and export some particular references. You export a particular group. Yes, so the one that we have, and you just export it in RIS file and say that's exactly what can be used in that's exactly what can be used in all reference managers. So it can be Zotero, whatever. They're all absolutely okay with RIS formats, and you just open it there and work with it comfortably, so you don't need to do it manually all the time. So which I find quite convenient. Okay. So yes, that's what I wanted to show about, to tell you today, because, well, that's what I actually wanted to cover. And I really thought that there might be some questions. Actually, in the presentation, while you're thinking that over, in the presentation, I have links to main sources that I use today, like that's Web of Science and EndNote, including MJL, to be on the safe side put once, but that's just another case and another story. Yeah, and also a link to our online course. I wouldn't call it a course, it's not an online course as it is. It's like module, a short one, which you can go through and just learn how to work with Web of Science in general. Yeah, how to do search in the database. So yes, those are the things that were for today. So questions, maybe from some rows over there. As for then another paragraph, yeah, another thought that I wanted to share with you. We're working quite actively right now, working at it at the moment, is using concordance tools for explaining what particular words, what particular grammatical structures are preferable for a particular journal. Yes, on the basis of analysis from different from different journals. We tried to make it more general, like some recommendations for example, for physics, but it doesn't work properly because there are very specific things in different journals. But that helps a lot, and that's quite easy to use. I mean, all the concordance tools, and so they are not directly connected with anything that I discussed and told you before. But that's a very nice option that usually students and postdocs like. Well, if they really think a lot about how to write an article, because I know that in many situations, anyway, it's done kind of, well, randomly a little bit. Okay, so then I would say that's it on my part. I'll be here for some time, and if you have some kind of questions, please welcome. If not, then that's evening already. Yeah, and I'm really happy that you found this hour to come. Okay, thank you very much.